Everyone, if you're watching this in the future, scroll back to the very first second. In the top right corner, you'll see the lovely Mick Solomon's here with us.
Hello everyone. Nice to be here. Um, yeah, how's it going,
And that's
Alex?
it. He's out. He's fucking out of
That's
here.
all I have to offer this
That's
stream.
all he has to offer.
Yeah.
People ask, I think legitimately every stream, they're like, did Mick die? Where's Mick?
No, not
Chase,
yet.
can you vouch for that? That happens all the time.
The people are concerned, Mick.
The people are concerned.
I think I actually got an email that day from someone saying this is the most entertaining show that I watch. So,
and you were like, damn, you need to get out more, man.
Yeah. I mean, well, I think it was because I was on there. He was saying that.
Oh, that's what it was. G-Lock's here.
Hey, G-Lock.
G-Lock's saying hi, guys.
Anyway, got to run, fellas.
All right. I'll see you later, Mick. We'll make it a good show for you.
Yeah.
As always, fellas. It'll be incredible.
Yep. Catch us
later. All right. Later, dude.
Bye.
Yeah, G-Lock's here. G-Lock had a bunch of flights. We got a bunch of stuff to talk about, Chase. Did you look over the list of things that we're talking about?
Brief.
Okay. We got to talk about future guests. We're going to try to get some physical therapists on the show. It's Cool Dude 69 as well. Hey, Strong Crew. Cool Dude 69. We're going to have future guests, see if we want get some PTs on here, things like that. I don't know, we should probably workshop that. Talk about creatine. I've had, I think, 2 creatine emails come in being like, should I take this? The creatine market has been upset recently with pricing. Same thing with the whey protein market. So people are wondering if they actually have to take it for their gains. And then what was the third thing? Let's find out. Stephen Louie, physical therapist, seeing a PT, benching, Reddit crawl. That's about it. But okay. All right, everybody. This is the weekly Strength Club podcast. We're about 2 minutes in. We have some more guests now. Chase, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
My name is Chase Lindley. I am head coach at Starting Strength Oklahoma City, and I have been a starting strength coach for like a little over 2 years now, maybe almost 3.
It is. Well, you got yours January 1st, 2020.
Yeah.
I got mine January 2nd, 2020.
Hell yeah.
Still incredibly upset about that. Incredibly upset. Yeah, how many lifters do you guys have at OKC
now? We got about 35, 34 clients.
That's a pretty well-stocked stable, dude.
Yeah.
Who is your most interesting client there?
Oh, man.
Johnny G here. Hey, Johnny G.
In terms of kind of someone who kind of tests like your patience and stuff like that, we have one member who, I mean, she's great. She'll do the work, but getting her to understand like you're not gonna die every time you go underneath the bar.
Oh yeah.
You know, she kind of flips out about numbers, and then
how old is she?
She is late 60s.
Late 60s. Okay, so when you're like, listen, we're gonna add 5 more pounds to your deadlift, is gonna be fine. She's.
Oh my gosh! I don't know how I'm gonna do it. You know, just like, look, calm down. Let's walk off the edge. We can go even 2 pounds. You know, I kind of trick her sometimes, but man, she's great because I mean, even though she kind of bickers and just doesn't really trust the process, it's the complete opposite. When she fails a lift, she's like, "Why did I fail? Like I can't fail. Like I'm never supposed to fail." It's like, well, you know, listen to the cues, and then she ends up doing it the next set, and it's perfect. And she's like, "I got to redo it." And we're like, "What? Like what happened like 10 minutes ago where you're complaining about the weight?" But now she's good, man. And then we have just several other clients that I'm sure you kind of ran into this where like, you know, someone will go, "Hey, I'm doing X, you know, event outside of here, and I forgot to tell you that's why my lifts are so shitty, or I'm doing X diet right now." And you're like, "Oh, great. Well, you should have consulted me, you know."
What, you know, I don't know if you've heard this. One of my wife's friends, she was an officer in the Navy. My wife is, and then also her friend is. And then she was like, "Yeah, my friend was telling me about this really interesting diet." And I was like, I was already ready for it to be stupid. I was like, "What's the diet?" And then she said it's called the egg diet.
What's the egg diet?
Can you guess what it is?
I'm guessing like you eat nothing but eggs.
So you eat a lot of, I think they were saying it's a hack to get into keto. As long as you only eat eggs and egg byproducts, the fat to protein ratios will be sufficient where you can get into keto. So in the morning, it'll be like scrambled eggs. In the afternoon, it'll be like deviled eggs, and you can put some more mayonnaise in the yolk and then whip it up. And at night, you can have like egg whites on like with like some vegetables, and then also some more of that. And then basically, it was just like this woman was just eating eggs constantly. And I think they were saying like, it's keto, but it's also financially, it's like instead of getting red meat and like butter it all the time, how you just fucking eggs? You just lay on the ground and eat eggs. She told me about this, and it was amazing. It was amazing that an adult human being can read that and be like, "This is the trick for me."
Yeah, this sounds logical. This sounds great.
Yeah, you know what I'm going for? It's the egg diet. And I was like, okay, all right. I
Can
can't
you imagine what that person smells like throughout the whole entire day?
I know, just constantly
and smelling of eggs.
I know. If I told my wife, I was like, "Sweetie, I'm only going to eat eggs for the next week," she'd be like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" It was such an interesting. And then I realized, I was like, "There's probably crazier stuff out there." It's like when you hear people about doing like juice fasts and cleanses for multiple days, all that stupid stuff. Yeah, that's the massive fart diet. That is correct. That's the one thing we've been skirting around, cool dude. But he went straight to the point.
Let's start a diet. Fuck it. Let's have no logic to it. And you know what? We're gonna eat a raw onion like an apple on the daily.
And then you know what? Frankly, you're not going to want to eat anything else because you'll be terribly ill.
Exactly. So it sounds great. I mean, we're gonna have people.
That's the secret, man. Weight. That's the secret. I'm gonna be honest. All of the times where I've been very successful at getting lean, I just won't eat for like 3 to 5 days. I won't eat anything, and then I'll just just drink like Pedialyte or something every once in a while, and I'll be like totally fine. Just a lot of chewing gum, a lot of sugar-free gum. I'm gonna be like, oh wow, like I've lost. Like it's like a very quick, fast mini cut, and then you can just like be in a slight deficit after that. It's just like it just saves me like a month of dieting. I always enjoy doing that. Have you dieted recently? Have you ever intentionally lost weight, Chase?
No.
That's awesome, man. Stay strong, brother. Never do it. People juiced onions. Was there a juicing onion phase to raise tea?
Fuck, man. Can you imagine drinking like onion juice?
That's pretty sick, dog. That's pretty sick.
I'd do it.
Would you?
If it helps me raise my testosterone, bro.
Speaking of which, Mark's testosterone. This is kind of a asking for a friend situation. If you're out there, you put some dots together. Maybe the third mic of the show, Mark. He got his testosterone checked recently, and it was just above the end of the reference range. So in Australia, they use something per deciliters. I forget exactly what they use a different. They don't use nanograms the way that we do here. If you get our testosterone checked in the United States, they use a different system. They're a different metric, but their reference range is 10 to 30. Mark here, he scored an 11 out of 30. And this is whenever he was theoretically, like, he's been sleeping really well for a few days. He's training a few times a week. He's not terribly overweight. He's going some walks. He's doing all of the things that are right for him. And he is just barely above the reference range. Have you persuaded any of your clients to get on a TRT, Chase?
A few
Have
of them
get checked?
Yeah, a few of them.
Okay.
And but like that at that point, like they're somewhat symptomatic, right? So they can't sleep. Their recovery's terrible. They're irritable. They know that something's wrong, but they can't place their finger on what it is. Like it's no rash that develops on their skin, and then they can go see someone. A lot of times, whenever it's hormonal, like you live like this for a while, and then once you're on hormone replacement therapy, it's a night and day difference where you're not irritable. You can recover. Your mind is not foggy.
Mm-hmm.
But trying to convince someone that that's the issue, it's just like, no, it can't be that.
You're like, it can't be that. Like I have both of my testicles. I'm not hypogonadal. I still have my gonads. Yeah, that's an interesting one. So it's just like there's a position in the argument of saying it's like, okay, well theoretically you can have someone who has relatively low free testosterone levels, but their testosterone receptor sites, the rest of the system, basically the other side of the equation they have to balance out is making it still that it's like they're not symptomatic. They feel totally fine. They could just be tricking themselves into thinking I'm not getting the results I want. Maybe I'm just not as good as I think I am. Things like that. That's why I need to get on testosterone. There is a part of the argument where that could be what it is. But it's like if you aren't dealing with fertility issues and then you're not terribly overweight, you'll make sure your cholesterol and all of your heart metrics are fine. Like I think going on T is very low consequence for most men. And it's just like it's going to be doctor supervised. You're not going to be making it by yourself in your basement. So since it'll be doctor supervised, you'll likely be more than fine. Would you recommend someone who is just at the bottom of the reference range to get on T, or at least to talk to an endocrinologist?
I would go off a base of your symptoms, right? So if you're
Mm-hmm.
Mark here, where he feels totally fine at 11, he can get by maybe with the novice phase, but if he wants to take training serious, yeah, he probably needs to do some replacement therapy, just
Yeah.
because of the now increased strain that we're putting on the recovery aspect. But I mean, just a normal average Joe out there who just feels fine and is not developing any symptoms, it could be fine. But
Yeah.
why not live to your maximum potential with, let's say you're already taking like a multivitamin. Well, here's like another multivitamin with your test.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Certainly an interesting subject. It's just if you are concerned about it, if you have suspicions where you're like, I would say don't talk to an endocrinologist. The most symptoms are a better indicator. Well, normally, to get someone prescribed, I believe internal medicine docs can prescribe this, but they're going to forward you to an endocrinologist no matter what. I think some urologists also do TRT. If you go to a testosterone clinic or a hormone therapy clinic, it's like going to the mechanic and being like, "Hey, mechanic, I think I have a problem. Can we do something about this?" They're going to suggest that solution to you. It may be wise to go to someone who is more hesitant and then ask them, "Hey, what are the reasonings as to why I shouldn't do this?" And they'll be like, "Hey, well, you're rather overweight, you're 55, and you have very high LDL. Like, we don't want to, give you a bunch of testosterone and then instigate some sort of like heart issue a little bit later on." So yeah, I think I would say it's certainly good to get both sides of the story before you do it. I have a few guys who were on the sauce on the roster, and they've been loving it. Yeah. Okay. I think we have a bunch of form checks to get to. I guess we're going backwards on this, man. We have Stephen Lewis. He sent in a very interesting video. Chase, did I tell you about this yet?
Mm-mm.
Okay. All right. This is exciting. It's going to take us a second, folks. Most urologists are also garbage. They are still in the dark ages of androgen deprivation. That's sick, man. You know what? Actually, I have one of my clients is a good friend with a urologist. I'm going to ask him about this and see what the common perception is. So this is our boy, Stephen Louie. He's pulling 6'10" in what seems like to be a competition. This says Revolution Nation, don't tread on me. So we know where Louie's at. Is he locking it out? Down command. Bam. Pretty sick.
Nice.
So that was 6'10". Thoughts on this, Chase?
And he lost a little bit of some thoracic extension there, and then looks like the bar kind of got caught a little bit on the thighs at the top. The main thing I would try to fix here is just the thoracic extension, making sure that you're leading up with the shoulders instead of completely locking out the knees, then using all of the hip to pick the load up. Show off the chest like an alien's popping out. Shoulders come up first, and it should be fine.
Do you think you got a red light on this?
I don't know.
For downward travel or hitching?
I didn't see any.
Yeah, Stephen Louie, because the lights are off. He looks off to the side and he doesn't look super happy. Do you see the one I'm talking about at the end?
Maybe right there, but I don't see any.
Yeah, I
don't see any lights.
Okay. Yeah, Stephen Louie, if you're here, let us know. He always pops in, possibly a little bit later on. So Steve, if you pop in, let us know. But he's also lost a good bit of weight. He's been going down. I think he lost like 20-some pounds, is what we learned last time. He's still pulling over 6, which is great. I think the last time we checked in on his deadlift, it was like mid-5. I want to say it was 540 or something, so he's still been doing really good there.
Mm-hmm.
When's the last time you've done a competition deadlift in a meet?
That was like November of 2020 or 2019.
Man, maybe another 2 years. We'll give it another go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That was pretty good. Speed off the floor was good. If you were to ask for some supplemental lifts for Steven, what would you go for?
Definitely a rack
Obvious
pull.
answer. Yeah. So we'll go rack pulls for this. And he's doing a hook grip here. Do you think he was losing the grip, or did the grip look solid to you?
I don't know, man. It's such a far away video to where you can't really tell anything about the grip. Yeah. I think mainly it's just he's trying to fix his thoracic flexion, change it back into extension at the top, and that's what's killing the bar speed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically the bar gets to this position, if you guys can see my cursor, it only moves up like another inch, but he still has to do a ton of unfurling with his upper back to kind of get into position. So all of that motion has to happen. The bar's not really moving up terribly much, you know. Then he gets his down command. Very solid pull for Stephen Lewis. Very solid pull.
Yeah, I like to see the results of that. Like feels.
What would you? So if you had to guess, we'll ask him later. Maybe we'll shoot him an email. What do you think his deadlift or his squat and his bench were? We saw a 610 pull.
He is squatting probably about 545.
Okay.
Bench, he was in the 4s, right?
He was certainly in the 4s, yeah.
Yeah. I'm saying
His
about
overhead
420,
was,
425.
I think he was low 4s. It was between 385 to like 430 on bench, I want to say. And then his, what's it called? His overhead was somewhere in, I think like 285, I think.
Yeah.
This one is the friend of one of my clients. Let's find his name here. Find his name, but he recently just hit a big milestone. He pulled 405 for the first time.
Nice.
Yeah, my client has told him about starting strength that I believe, I haven't seen this video yet, I haven't watched it, but apparently he has found the light. This is Tom. He just hit a milestone deadlift of 405. I believe these are smaller plates than regulation, so he has them on these little foam pads.
I was
They
about
could
to
just be
say
for noise too.
about that.
Yeah, these cap plates, you'll see them pretty frequently, but they're always pretty small. Tom looks like a tall guy too. Yep. Is he making it? Oh, he made it.
Nice.
How are we feeling about this, Chase?
Man, way forward at the start. This bar is like 2 to 3 inches away from midfoot.
Yep.
So Tom, like on your setup here, you're kind of doing the steps a little bit in reverse, right? To where you're not approaching the bar, 1 inch away. Then you take your grip. You're kind of taking your grip first as the priority. Then you're setting up. Just move closer to the bar. Make your shins a little bit more vertical. Now, this is going to put you into a little bit more of an uncomfortable position here because, like, you can hang on to this position. Like, there's a ton of slack in your arms and your back, and then kind of play it a little bit more, Alex.
Okay. So pause real quick. Everybody, sear this into your memory. Okay. So like, look at how forward his knees are. They're a little bit past his toes. Shoulders are really far in front of the bar, and then we're going to see what happens. The bar is going to stay where it is now. Boop. The bar is going to stay where it is because it's really fucking heavy. And then his hips are going to shoot up and back. So the shins are getting more vertical. The hips are getting more up and back. It gets a little bit more dramatic, and then it really starts moving. This kind of relative shin angle, look how much more vertical the shin angle is, higher the hips are, where the arm position is, the shoulder blades are almost right on top of the bar. This is where we will want it to be, but then we'll go back to this. We're going to play this one through. I won't interrupt this one. But yeah, super forward like Chase was talking about. And then it starts moving.
Mm-hmm.
So this was 405. How much do you think, if he gets his shit set up correctly, what do you think we're going to see?
Maybe 420.
I think, yeah. I was going to say 425, 420. He's going to blaze it with his deadlifts. I believe this gentleman is a police officer, so he will not be blazing it, unfortunately.
No, but definitely he has more in the tank. It's just he's limiting himself with his technique.
Hell yeah. He's excited.
You ever seen that meme of that bowler where he's like, "Who do you think you are? I am," and he's like this?
It's a bowler?
Yeah. So like he bowled like either a perfect game or like he won the competition with a strike, and the camera zooms in on him, and he's like, talking to the crowd or his opponent. He's like, "Who do you think you are? I am," and it just makes no sense what he says, and he's just like, "Yeah, yes." Yes.
All right, everybody. I found it. We're gonna show this for reference so that people understand what he's talking about. So apparently, someone says, "Who do you think you are?" And then he says, "I am."
No, he says that. So he says
he says, "Who do you think you are?"
Yes, and he goes,
and he responds to himself by saying, "I am."
Yes, this was going on in. Was it Tom? Is that was his name?
Oh, this is Pete Weber. I think. Who is this?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's Pete Weber. Pete Weber, the bowler. Are you going to get into bowling, Chase? Do you think at some phase in your life you're going to be a bowling guy?
I don't know, man. Like it doesn't really particularly spike my interest. I'd rather be like a rollerblader, like me and a group of like
you shredding
guys. Oh hell yeah,
dude! That's too dangerous. I think I would never do that.
Have you ever rollerbladed?
Fuck no. Anything with wheels.
Competition.
Anything with wheels, absolutely not.
So you've never been
Skates as well?
rollerblading?
No, I've been on ice skates like 3 times in my life, and it was also terrible.
Damn, dude.
It was also terrible. This is my client Benny. Benny he's a very interesting guy. He'll tell me he's a police officer in Boston. He'll be like, crazy day at work, and it'll be a news article with like him in the background doing like sick police shit. It's very interesting. He'll be like, yeah, I had a hostage situation all day. It was I was the lead negotiator. It's crazy stuff.
Damn.
But yeah, Benny has a sick mustache as well. He's a pretty cool guy.
I like his too.
He's a jiu-jitsu guy. He's a jiu-jitsu competitor. He's been doing BJJ for a very long time, which is great. I think almost every single police officer, if you were on the street, should be doing some form of grappling. If you're doing wrestling, judo, jiu-jitsu, whatever the hell it is, you should know how to take someone down and hold them down on the ground. He's pulling in his boots today. This is his 405 for 3. This was him from a few weeks ago, but I think he just wanted to dab. I'm just making sure that he dabs on Tom for this one. He just shows Tom up. How do you feel about these pulls, Chase?
Man, they're pretty solid. Kind of getting a little bit slacky on the last little rep there.
Slacky where?
You can kind of tell that he's dropping his butt a little bit,
okay.
And there's not enough tension in the hamstrings.
Mm-hmm.
Needs to kind of just get his ass up a little bit more. I mean, he's setting it down roughly in the same spot. I would just like to see his stomach shoved down a little bit harder in between his legs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's one thing that people will have a ton of technique focus on the first rep, and then that mental focus or like where they are paying attention to will slip as the set goes on. Because like the relative effort increases, that's totally understandable. We'll pause it in this position. So he sets up pretty good. And then as he starts to pull, the lower back kind of loosens up.
Well, even then, like you could see, like there's a little bit of movement before we got into that position too.
Yeah, like as he's getting the slack out of the bar, it basically happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, people's basically focus is it should almost be rep 1, you're there, you're technically present, but by rep 5, that's when you're thinking about it the most. If you're doing a 5-rep set, if you're doing a triple, it's the 3rd rep by the final rep. Most people, they kind of do it the opposite way, especially if they're new. They'll really focus on the first rep, and it will fall to pieces by rep 5. You should really try to flip that. Have you tried figure 8 straps before, Chase?
No, I never have. I've had people in the gym though try it.
They like them?
And I mean, I think one client tried them and they were using previously just the length of strap that we normally teach on YouTube at Starting Strength. They like that better, but because there is a little bit of some nuance with it where you have to kind of let the bar sit deeper into the straps than it is in your hand. And they kind of didn't like that, but me personally, I've never used them.
Yeah, they are very hand size dependent. So like the straps that we recommend at Starting Strength, you can just use like seatbelt. If you have like a tie down ratchet for your truck, that stuff too, just cut a section of that off and use it. That's it acclimates, or excuse me, what's the word I'm looking for? It accommodates all hand and wrist sizes. It accommodates every single size. The figure 8 strap does not. So you may have to return and send back your figure 8 straps a few times. I know for people who have smaller hands, smaller wrists, it's probably not the best idea because it's just gonna slide down even if you have a very small. If you get the smaller size to it. If you have big hands, if you have big wrists, I think they're really solid. But yeah, good pull, Benny. These are the 2 Boston guys. Oh, I have to pre-screen the video here, everyone, real quick. I do not know what we're gonna watch. Okay, so somebody sent in a video. Oh, perfect. Okay, all right. I have to finish watching this to make sure nobody takes their clothes off, and then we're good. All right, we're about to see it. I'm glad somebody sent one of these videos in. Okay, so this is a gentleman who is doing the body weight squat progression, and I think he wants to check if everything is in the right position. So he's in his living room in front of the fireplace. He's stretching out. Okay.
Oh, sweet. So this is kind of a cool video that to kind of just talk about some stuff. So we see this a lot at the seminars, whenever someone is just teaching, because everyone serves as both the lifter and the coach. Those people who are not really in it for the coaching aspect, they'll just kind of brush through the teaching method with people. And they have guys like this who kind of just sink down into the bottom, who are naturally kind of flexible to do it. And they don't really get them into the proper position from the get-go. So like you can, what's this guy's name again?
So man, this could be lead speak that I'm just forgetting. It could be Akeem. So it's AK33M. So that could be Akeem. He could be doing early 2000s style. I'm using threes instead of E's, or it could be AK33. I'm not sure. So I think we could go for Akeem for this one.
Yeah. So Akeem, like at the bottom there, see, you're just able to kind of sit down into that position and relax. We don't want you to relax, right? So at this position, your hamstrings are just slapping against the back of your calves. You need to be a little bit higher up. And then the tips of your elbows are inside of your knee, not the meat part back here, but this part, like your funny bone, needs to be inside of the groove of your, where like the joint is of your knee.
So if you saw this guy, so you're at the seminar, you're coaching. I mean, the Nick Delgadillo, he put out an interesting video on this. I'm not sure if it's a public video, but it's talking about like some refinements to the coaching progression. And it's something that I think a lot of us do, but I'm not sure if we have fully realized it or actualized it. When you see someone who's doing this, what do you think the problems are going to be if you put a bar on his back right now?
Right now, he's just going to bounce into his knees. He's going to
go
not using his
way
hip.
too deep. Yep.
Yeah.
And if we watch him when he stands up, were you seeing hip drive there, Chase?
A tiny bit, but it's more chest dominant.
Okay.
See, so now you even think about it there.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you're like, if you see someone who's really flexible and then they're doing a really good job of getting in a position, they can get really deep with it. You're going to think, okay, this he's going to bottom out recklessly whenever I put a bar on his back. He's probably not going to be leaning over because he doesn't have to very much if they have a longer torso, and he's not going to be driving his hips up. So you have to start cueing in advance to get ahead of those things. Yeah. So like what Chase was saying, it's like he's a little bit too deep. We want to bring his hips up. We want to get his elbows in a better position, leaning over, get the hip drive going. How long does it take for your apprentices to kind of like pick this up and get going to speed for stuff like this?
Getting like the teaching method down?
Yeah.
To be honest, we really don't spend too much time on it. We mainly just want to get their coaching eye as fast as possible, but we'll spend a couple sessions like on Saturdays. We'll all kind of get together and talk about it. And I mean, they know the brief overview. I mean, even everyone at the seminars who have never had any exposure to the teaching progression, they pick up the big pieces of like, look, the two things are different. They may not realize what those two things are as we go into the progression. You know, the two things that are different, you're not going to pause at the bottom. And then, you have the bar on your back at this point. So your elbows are preoccupied with maintaining the grip. They always point out the two things, just not into that descriptive detail. They understand the stance, but it's kind of the big things of, did this person actually drive their hips effectively? Did they understand that this is the proper depth and that their back angle is going to be maintained throughout the whole entire motion, and it's going to be predominantly horizontal? That's kind of the big things that everyone fucks up.
Newer coaches can see setup errors. And if you're working with someone who's a newer coach or you are a newer coach, that's really valuable because sometimes people fuck up setup errors. They'll have like one hand here, one hand out there. They'll have one foot forward, one hand back. They'll toes in wonky places. Newer coaches can see setup errors and they'll think that solving those setup errors is like really important and that they're doing a great job. The better you get, the more you'll be able to see and then get ahead of those movement errors. If we classify between setup errors and movement errors, what those things are. So it's like what Chase was talking about. Like, is the torso angle going to remain relatively constant on the way up? Are the hips going to be driving out of the movement? Are they going to be picking their chest up? Things like this. Chase, do you remember this guy?
Yeah.
This is Milan. Milan was squatting rather high with this weight, I believe. I believe he fixed his warm up on the same weight. Was squatting rather high, super in his knees before, and I believe he sent in another video to correct it.
Was this that video?
This is the correction, yes.
Oh, okay.
Be nice, Chase.
I mean, he did get into his hips a little bit more. I will give him that. But man, the depth here, yeah, you're gonna have to drop this. I'm assuming, what is this, like kilos or pounds, or whatever it is. Drop it down 10 kilos, 20 pounds, and you're going to go to the point where your ass is almost touching the platform. That's the key you're going to think about.
I think this may have been his deepest rep. How far off do you think he is here?
At least 2 to 3 inches.
2 inches, yeah, 2 inches, yeah. So Chase, I know Chase likes to look at the hip crease, which he's tracking probably about right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I like to basically imagine where their femur is. Pretend I have Superman vision. Dale. What's up, Dale? How's it going, dude? Let us know if you have some questions. Yeah, we have a good bit of people in the chat. Let us know if you guys have questions. This is always a live Q&A too. I like to pretend I can see where their femur is, just kind of through movement, and then I think is basically the head of their femur, the greater trochanter area, getting below the knee. Those are both valid strategies for figuring out depth. Does he get deeper at all, or was that the deepest one, Chase?
I think that may be the deepest one because right there, he got into the knees there. I'm assuming, well, maybe that was on par with the first rep. The first.
Yeah, that's about the same exact level. That's not getting white lights, I don't think.
No.
Mm-mm. Maybe also, a white from the front.
And if he's coaching himself here, like you can definitely tell because you mentioned this a while ago, but I just think about it every time I see these pants now, like the lines of the Adidas stripes of these shorts. It's the best indicator of if you're going to hit depth or not, because at the bottom, like we see that there's a little bit of an angle to where his hips are a little bit higher than his knees. In the proper setup, that is going to be the opposite, where his knees are going to be higher than his hips.
Do you think this is him not really knowing where depth is reliably, or do you think the weight's just too heavy for him to get there?
I almost think a little bit of both.
Okay. So to reference that teaching progression that Akeem was doing right before this,
mm-hmm.
That's about the deepest that he's going to for the end of the set. He's definitely in his knees. His weight is forward. The adjustments that I would make, I would pull his heels out. I think part of him being too far forward is the toe angle being too severe. But Dale's got a question. We'll get to your question right after we finish with Milan chicks. The hips need to be back, but the value of that teaching progression is to help calibrate this in. So it's like he's squatting 3 something whatever here. It doesn't cost a lot of resources to, in between your set, just sit down in that position, go near a mirror, and then say, all right, I got these stripes on my shorts. What the hell am I doing? Sit down, hands like you're praying, get your knees inside your elbows, sit down, figure out where depth is. You can stand up from bodyweight squat just fine. So that's some of the utility of it. So it's like Akeem was doing, he probably has a rack somewhere in his basement. He figure out he's squatting there, but he's using that video for us and for him to see exactly where his depth is. That would be helpful for Milan chicks too. Let's just say you think 10 kilos is fine to take off for this, Chase?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so a little bit of a deload, take these grays off, take these 5 kilo plates off. I think that should be fine. How do you feel about the hip drive? Do you think he's driving the hips out pretty well?
Yeah, it's not bad, but I mean, as a lifter gets into their knees and stuff, they're going to have to crank up their chest to kind of just help distribute the load back into somewhat of a more balanced point. Like
it's hard to present hip drive when you are on your toes.
Yep.
When the knee position is too forward, just in general. How do you feel about the grip, Chase? What do you think whenever you see a lifter? I'll pause it whenever there's some more contrast. Well, how do you feel whenever you see a lifter when their hand is almost entirely off the bar like that? How do you feel about that?
I'm not too worried about it. If they can hang on to the bar and it's not causing any discomfort or the bar's not rolling, I'm fine with it. I mean, I think this guy's just maybe very inflexible to where day one, whenever he was trying to hit depth, he's just going down to his flexibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
His upper back position, it can be tighter. I think he needs to encroach his arms each set that he's doing this. Exactly.
More narrow? Okay.
Mm-hmm. But the big thing, as he's doing that teaching progression, right, at the bottom, it kind of serves as a little bit of a stretch, right? So you can kind of get that sensation of your adductors getting them loose a little bit. And I think, too, he needs to widen out his stance a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember before, I think he may have been even more narrow because what was happening before is his belly was just touching his legs and he was just noping out as soon as that happened. Yeah. Right. So this question may take a minute. This is an interesting one. I've got a question. He says, Dale, for more advanced lifters, would speed work be more useful on the volume day or the intensity day? Either way, can you explain why? Chase and I will probably have different answers on this one.
Yeah, maybe so. Like with my current situation, I'm using some dynamic effort on my volume day. I'm not doing anything with speed on my intensity day because I feel like if you're using that as your cursor or your mark for progress, especially on your intensity day, it's hard to determine how to increase the load at that point and basically how to PR at that point. Whereas on the volume day, you're getting a little bit less stress. You're able to recover from those dynamic effort days. You're not beating yourself up with just wrecking yourself with a bunch of volume.
Yeah. This question assumes that you are only doing that lift 2 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
Chase, how many times are you going to the gym a week?
Currently 4.
How many times are you picking a barbell up off the floor within those 4 days? How many days of the week?
Every single day.
Every single day. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So for early intermediates, people who cannot progress a lift 3 times a week, it is very valid to go down to 2 times a week for those lifts to let that cycle continue to run itself out. Eventually, you will need to insert more practice. So at some point, it's like, or how the flow tended to go is like, I'm doing a lift 3 times a week because it's really easy. I'm setting super reliable PRs. It's getting really hard. I'm dropping it down to 2 days a week, and that's way more than enough stress still for me to continue facilitating my progress. And then I need to figure out how to add a third slot or a fourth slot into my movements so that I'm doing enough work to progress. I think the question kind of poisons the well a little bit. Would speed work be more useful on the volume day or the intensity day? If we assume that you can only do that lift 2 times a week, if you do the speed work before your volume work, that's likely more fine because you're still able to get whatever dynamic effort or whatever speed effect that you're hoping to get out of that. And then you do your volume work. But you may be sabotaging your ability to do volume work if you are mismanaging the intensity of the speed work. If you do it before your intensity work, you are sabotaging your intensity work. If you do it after your intensity work, you are sabotaging your dynamic effort work. So generally, so let's say this is for like deadlift, for example. You keep a volume day for, where you're doing 3 or 4 sets of deadlifts, and then you keep an intensity day where you're doing like 2 top sets of rack pulls. There's probably a third or a fourth day where you're coming in and you're benching, or you're coming in and you're doing some squats, you're doing something like that, where you can fit in some power cleans, where you can fit in some power snatches, where you can fit in all of that extra work. You're trying to get that dynamic effort work to be, it's such a dose where you can recover before the next amount of pulling. If that's your intensity day or your volume day or whatever that is. So I wouldn't put it on either of those days, Dale. I would just increase frequency.
Yeah.
Chase, have you considered going to 5 times a week ever?
I did for a while. I mean, the most I ever did was 6, and that was fucking brutal.
Yeah.
It just I should not have started out at 6. I should have.
Was that during your Olympic lifting phase or whenever you were doing more power?
No, that was the Olympic stuff.
Okay.
Because Daddy Ripito was like, "Look, 6 days a week, Bulgarian method." I'm like,
6 days.
"Think that'll work?" I'm like, "Yeah, it'll work." I'm like, "All right." No, man, I couldn't recover, and I had my programming all fucked up. But Dale too, so think of how you're going to quantify the speed work too. You may not need speed work at this point, but what Alex was saying about being able to quantify your speed on the pull with a power clean or a snatch, because now you can rack it, right? But on the squat, it's going to be a little bit harder. A press or a bench too. So you just kind of keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think you can get a decently cheap Tendo unit or like a bar velocity tracker for like $200-$300.
Jeez.
They're helpful. I mean, like I have a few guys who track velocity, and we operate at different velocity loss thresholds depending on what we're hoping to achieve for fatigue. Like they're interesting stuff. I would do that. What I would say if you're interested in doing velocity work is just track it. Don't change anything about your programming, and then see if you can start noticing trends about it. And then once you start noticing trends, start trying to make decisions. Don't get it and then try to make decisions off it. Once you have a week's worth of data, it's not going to do anything. MJ has a question that's pretty related to this, Chase. He says, if I want to up my press frequency from 1 time a week to 2 times a week, what kind of programming considerations should I be thinking about for each session?
MJ, what are you doing currently? So let's say you're pressing twice to where it kind of looks like a volume day and then an intensity day. More than likely, right? If you want, or actually, if you're just doing it from once to twice, man, you have to incorporate kind of what you're lacking. So if it's not enough stress, right, maybe some more volume. If you're kind of hitting one or two singles on your intensity, you may need to practice that a little bit more with more intensity, more singles at it. But more than likely for the press, you're going to stall at a specific range of motion, and then I like to program pin presses at that point.
Okay.
What do you think, Alex?
So yeah, I think the big question is like, how many times are you also benching a week? I would say
Yeah.
is the big one. If you're only pressing one time a week, like, frankly, I know Nick Dogadillo likes to do his pressing work. Whenever he talks about like pressing stuff, he'll always say, do your press first and then bench afterwards. If you had to do both on the same day, which one would you organize first, Chase?
I actually make people do the bench first and then the press.
Yeah, same here. I think like the bench, if it's like really heavy, let's say you're doing like I think MJ is like mid 200s right now. You're doing mid 200s for doubles. Oh, that's probably your problem, MJ. Jesus
Yeah.
Christ. Okay, so MJ is saying he's only benching one time a week, and he's also only pressing one time a week. So if you can only go to the gym 2 times a week, that's not the end of the world, but you should probably be doing both bench and press both times,
Yeah.
increase your frequency. But you just need to be working out more, frankly. A lot of the stalling that you've seen is most likely because you are not training. You're not getting enough exposures to frequency. Yeah, increase that. I just got a question from one of my guys. I'm going to read this one off because it has all of his personal information in here. So he just got back from skiing. He said, I've been watching the knees over toes guys, if you are familiar with him. I like the idea of those functional movements that support knee health. He says, I'm thinking I want more functional lower body movements to complement the back squat. I don't want to remove the the low bar squat because it's my best bang for buck, but maybe squat one time a week hard and then sled drag, split squat, or other unilateral stuff. These movements seem like they fit with my goals of being mobile and injury free while able to carry over to a lot of different activities. What do you think, Chase?
So let's just take skiing into example. So if you're an avid skier, right, you're going through a very large range of motion, right? So you're hitting all these slopes, you're hitting a bunch of bumps, you're maybe doing jumps, who knows, right? And you are trying to supplement with extra exercise selection to trying to increase that range of motion and to get the joints and all that stuff stronger. No, just continue squatting, maybe a little bit more conditioning work, right? If you're doing some like cross country skiing or of that nature. But if I want my knees stronger, I'm not going to do a single leg lunge because one, how do I load that? And yeah, I can put a bar on my back and stuff, but there comes a point to where I'm not going to load it as efficiently as I can a squat or a deadlift. All these things have kind of been taken into account with, being in the blue book of what we kind of judge lifts on the three criteria. Can we use the most weight possible, the most muscle mass, and over the greatest effective range of motion? If you are looking at those supplemental exercises and you're saying no to those three criteria on a lot of those exercises, it's not it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's this guy. He always he tends to get pretty caught up in what everything's new or flashy. He doesn't ski too often. It was just like a skiing vacation. He does like a lot of walking, a lot of jogging. He's a pretty active guy. I think he's doing like a kickball league 1 or 2 times a week. Does a lot of yoga. I think people expect these movements to have unique adaptive properties or unique adaptive capacity to the tissues. The tissues are not some sentient being who knows it's like, oh man, I've done my backwards treadmill walks. That means I can resist eccentric contraction now better because I did my reverse treadmill walks. You are resisting an eccentric contraction when you're going down to the squat. You are maintaining an eccentric or almost an isometric contraction during most of the deadlift on your quads. All of your rowing work, all of your benching work, you are getting that. You're getting that work in. I think whenever people conceptualize these things, they think because the movement is different, it is not really happening elsewhere. If it is a skill-based thing, Johnny G, yeah. If it is a skill-based lift, like the power clean or the snatch, you're not going to be able to replicate that doing something else. Organic athletic movement is a skill, certainly, but it is done within the sport that it is contained, right? So even like if I only do judo for a month and then I go and wrestle, I'm going to be sore and I'm going to work my muscles differently in a way from doing wrestling than I am from doing judo, another grappling sport, just because the posture is different, how I'm moving is different, the speed of which I'm moving is different, all of that stuff. Even something that looks super similar is different enough, you know. Like I think people think that it's like, okay, if I prepare myself with all of these prehab movements, I know prehab was a big word a few years ago, about like prepping yourself for impending doom of injury. Like all of this extra prehab work, my tissues are going to gain some sort of unique resilience. They're really not.
No.
You know, there's no evidence for that. If there were evidence for that, you would see a much different climate in the PT industry, in the fitness industry, just in general. I think it's just to try to sell people on things. Man, hope maybe we could figure that out in another 40 years, I think, of data accumulation.
Yeah, I just don't understand. Like, look, muscles do this, right? And they make joints close and open. Now, whatever sport you're doing, right, determines that range of motion, and your joints now have to adhere to that range of motion, to that movement pattern. So we got to get
that spectrum
stronger.
of loading, to that
Yes.
velocity of loading, velocity of contraction. Yeah. This is Remar. This is 3x3 at 230. We wanted this to be pretty easy. He had a big practice on Monday and Tuesday. How do you feel about his grip width, Chase?
Definitely needs to widen it out about 2 finger widths.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, this looked a little bit narrow to me. This is the first time I'm watching this.
That needs to see some leg drive and not bouncing off the chest.
Yeah, he's a bouncy guy. How much bounce is too much bounce, Chase? What do you like to tell people so they can understand it?
I've used cues of like, look, your shirt is now a sheet of glass. Try not to break the glass. I've actually cued it to where I want it to pause right above your chest. Don't even touch. Just let it hover. To where if they think about the bounce too much, especially with a person like this, to where it's like the bounce is so integrated into them already, it's going to be hard to break them with that habit. They're just going to get used to it. To where now they're going to have to think about the opposite end, to where like, look, I got to pause this on my chest. I don't even have to touch my chest almost.
Yeah, the supplemental lift we use the most for Remar is the pause bench, specifically for this reason. Yeah. The same thing with, one thing I've noticed is like people who do this on their bench where they just like slam the thing on their squat, they'll have a really harsh rebound on the squat, really harsh rebound on the press. It's a very good athletic quality to have, to be able to really change direction quickly, figure out how to use these bounces and rebounds. But like sometimes it may not be the best for training effect for what you're trying to do,
Yeah.
Like this is another skill versus, like what intended adaptation are you hoping to impart on the tissue? Yeah, I think 235 was probably a better call for this triple. 230 was a little bit too easy, I think. I think here's a failed set that we're going to see. We're going to see a failure on rep 3 to spoil it for everybody. But I want Chase to see this guy.
Same dude?
No, different guy. This is Alex. He is a very active guy. He does a lot of skiing as well. Done a lot of mountaineering, a lot of mountain biking, a lot of soccer.
I remember his wooden shed.
I know, man. Yeah, it's a house that he's working on. He's building this giant fucking house for someone. It's really cool. Yeah. And then rep 3, I believe, is the kicker on this one. This may have been the successful set, may not have been Bulls. No, failure. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Chase, what are you thinking?
Got to get deeper. So I want to see more knee bend. So everything looks good. You're just now cutting it short. Bend the knee more. So there's an egg behind, like where your joint of your knee is. Make it crack. Yep, right there where the mouse was. Just keep bending the knees, right? Make your ass go straight down in between your heels, and then come back up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is an interesting one. I think Alex got a little bit spooked out over the load. This is the first time he's at 365 in a while. He's coming off of a deload week, so we're just trying to kind of eyeball some weights. I think this is a little bit of a brave call. Whenever people squat slightly high, I think the bounce is just not as good. You know,
definitely.
It's miles apart. If you can time that bounce really well, where everything is at this really good contractile length, like hamstrings are really long, glutes are really long, you're in a solid spot to bounce. It's about like 2 inches south of where he's going to bounce here. Let's try and pause this where he stops. So he stops about there. Head of his femur is probably about right there at the moment. Hip crease is still a little bit high. If I can see him be slightly deeper, like Chase was saying, like try and get that egg to crack behind your knee, he's going to get a more solid bounce out of this one. I think he also picks the head up and doesn't drive the hips hard enough on this one. Yeah, the head's a little bit up, a little bit on the heels. Yep, and then sits it back down. Yeah, more bounce, and I think this one would have been totally fine. How do you think? Do you think the bar position was a little bit low here?
I don't think so.
Okay. I have a hard time telling from this angle.
He's just kind of losing his chest a little bit.
Yeah.
And usually that happens whenever you're trying to, cut off the depth a little bit to where now there's no, or rather all the eccentrics being stopped by like the upper back, I feel like, instead of the eccentric being carried down into like the adductors, everything at the bottom range of the motion, and you're able to utilize that as the bounce. It's now just that force is being transferred up into the back, the upper back, and he's losing it.
For sure.
Kind of see
agreed
it there
on
where
all fronts.
It changes a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, that little shift in movement. Yeah. So a PT has also told him to say he was having like a little elbow tendinopathy that popped up just from how much work he was doing. He was like working 10 hours with his hands, also lifting. They told him to wear these pressure bands on his elbows.
Like the copper fit shit?
These are from Mark Bell. This is from Slingshot, I believe. But like, I just can't imagine as a physical therapist, like recommending like, oh, just put this band on and that'll be your solution. Like if the intended solution is to make the person think that extra pressure on their elbow is going to be helpful, I guess you've solved the problem because you just told them that that's going to be a solution. You know what I mean? You told them like, oh, like, well, like imagine if, what you got to do is you have something to squeeze your elbow, and because it's being squeezed, it's now going to work better,
Yeah.
I just can't imagine. I can't imagine saying that to someone being like,
these
listen.
guys are they're surrounded by bullshit all day long. So we're like, it just has to be almost like one up every single time. Like, next time they're going to be like, yeah, I want you to stab a fucking rusty ice pick into your elbow, and this will be totally fine the next day.
Well, they did some dry needling, and I told them beforehand, I was like, yeah, all these manual therapies, like cupping, all like the, what's it called? Like active release massage, dry needling. There's not really a big like basis of evidence for this. Probably just like go and take an extra nap and eat some food and like go hang out with your wife, be happy. It'll probably help. And he was like, yeah, I tried the dry needling. It was really painful, but didn't really help, And then I think it's just like this. I think people think that it needs more support with these bands. People will wear not knee sleeves. I know knee sleeves, they can have help with elastic rebound, but with a lot of these like pressure bands that people advise, I see people wearing them all the time, especially older people. I just don't think they realize how much pressure is actually needed to really change anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you would have to have a vice grip on that joint to legitimately change how it's going to move. Like if you put some KT tape on your knee, that KT tape would have to be like a metal coiled spring. Yeah. It would have to be like a sway bar in a car. It would have to be that robust to do anything, because you're just like stretching the tape, and then you're moving. Oh, that's a controversial one. Yeah, you're just moving the skin on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny G said, "Hey, active release therapy was recommended to me by Rippito." Yeah, I really like Greg Lehman's opinion on this. Lehman. Look him up. He says it's really hard to have strong opinions in the space of physical therapy because there's not really terribly robust data that anything works. So it's like there's not a huge randomized control trial, or there's not a huge meta-analysis that says that squatting is the best solution. We have a lot of evidence that say a lot of things kind of work for some people. Most people return to the mean over some period of time. So it's hard to have strong opinions. I don't think active release therapy is frankly super useful. What do you think, Chase?
It depends. Like, so with like Johnny's case, it could be he tore his hamstring a little bit. Maybe just that massage, that mashing up helps break up the scar tissue. I'm going to say that's going to help. But if everything was fine and your hamstring just felt wonky, it could have just been your movement that you were doing. Let's say take this guy for example, where he's almost good morning it up, and your hamstrings are fucking hurt after you squat. That's an issue. You fix the movement there to where you're not good morning your squat. You're getting your chest up, your knees forward, and your hamstring pain will kind of go away.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, like Chase was saying, like fix the movement. It's not, and we're not saying the movement itself is inherently dangerous. Like if it's more like where that loading is going. So it's like Johnny G for your hamstring, your deadlifts were like stiff-legged deadlifts, and they
Yeah.
were 2 inches out over the front of your foot. Like that's going to be really stressful on your hamstrings no matter what you did. You also, while getting active release therapy, you probably also just reduced your load on the deadlift. You probably changed how you were deadlifting a little bit at the same time. It's really hard to separate those out. This is another one of my guys. This is Ryan Ford. Ryan Ford, he's an interesting guy. He's done Ironmans. He does a lot of Spartan runs. He's doing getting into climbing now. He's done a ton of jujitsu, done a ton of wrestling. He's just kind of like an all-around athlete. Very interesting guy. His deadlift is super frustrating though. Chase, how do you feel about these pulls?
Definitely some wonkiness going on. It's just, I mean, I kind of get this a lot too. Like at the start, I mean, people just want to rush the fuck out of the setup. They want to just grip it and rip it. They do not want to set their back, and it's uncomfortable. Like what I was saying, making them pause and not letting them go until you say you can go has been really helpful. And then at the top, just hanging on to it, and again, pausing, making sure that you're completing each rep with your chest out, and the load can just basically just hang loose in the hands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been trying to tell him that this is still pretty light for him because he's doing this little shrug at the top, which is neat.
Yeah.
Like if it's a very heavy load, you won't be able to do that. Your arms will be, trying to pull out of their sockets.
Oh, come on, dog. I got a little puppy.
You got a puppy, Chase?
Yeah, and she's all fucking climbing on shit right now.
Chase, hold your puppy up to the camera.
All right, hold on.
All right, everybody. This is the puppy cast. Oh my God. Chase, what's your puppy's name?
This is Jade.
Jade? What kind of dog is she?
Jade. She is a Great Dane.
A great? Oh, damn, son.
Yeah. So one of our members, she was having God damn it! Now she's all tangled up. She was having lawn care service, and one of her lawn providers was like, "Hey, I got Great Dane puppies for sale. Do you know anybody who wants a dog?" And she's like, "Yes, I do." And she ends up like showing us pictures of dogs, and we're like, "Oh man, like a Great Dane? I don't know." So we ended up going to go view it, and of course, like you can't just go look at a puppy and not take it home. And we ended up taking it home.
Oh my God, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, she's
how old is Jade?
Like 10 weeks.
10 weeks? Okay, all right, man. That's gonna be very exciting to have a Great Dane going around.
I know, dude. She's a little shit already, but
are Great Dane? Do they like to run?
They do. Like apparently, like we read a lot about like just like the puppy, I guess behavior of Great Danes. You're not supposed to let them run. You're not supposed to let them like do a bunch of goofy puppy shit because of their joint integrity and stuff.
Really?
Which I find is bullshit because it's just the same thing as like, hey, don't squat past 90 degrees.
Yeah, are you gonna put a little weight vest on Jade?
Yeah, basically. So like we have her running around. We make her walk all the time, but not like, hey, let's go walk 30 minutes or hey, let's go run dead sprints. It's just
okay.
And just letting her do puppy stuff. And then apparently when they're 1 and 2 and their joints are more solidified and they're kind of done growing is whenever you can really push like the conditioning and exercising and stuff like that.
That's interesting, man. Because with like a lot of those big dogs, they'll say like, okay, well, when they're adults, they can't do too much exercise because they'll get like hip dysplasia or something like that. And it's like that may be the source of them being like terribly inactive,
Yeah,
and having that happen early. Yeah, you may have to start running with your dog, man.
Calm down. But
I rather jogging.
Well, with Garm, my other one, I make him swim a lot, and because he just loves swimming and running, so that's like perfect for him.
All right, there was some audio in here for Kirkland 6. Everybody, 1 second. I think he's talking about his hands. Okay, no, I think he's just talking. He's getting a little hyped up. He's talking to the camera. All right, we'll see how these squats go from Kirkland. We haven't seen this before, Chase, right? Though this is new.
Yeah, I don't remember this.
Yeah, I don't remember the Detroit
flyer.
Is it Flyers? Yeah. Okay, the walkout was long. That may be a camera function, though. I think that's just for recording. Have you seen a red weightlifting belt like this?
I think maybe once or twice, but it's not common.
That's interesting. It looks like it's like, I don't want to say woven, but it has like this very neat texture on it as well. I don't know if you can
It's like
see that on
almost
your
like
screen.
alligator.
I know. It
Skin.
looks like he has like an alligator skin, custom made red belt. He's just repping his Flyers gear.
That's cool, man.
This would be a very interesting seminar squat. This is like a very typical seminar squat that you'll see. So it's like certainly leaning over. You know, he's not getting to depth. He's driving his chest out of the bottom. How would you fix this,
Yeah.
Chase?
Depth priority. So shoving out the knees probably a little bit harder, and then at that point, making your belt come straight up out of the bottom. So he did it there on that last rep. It says completing it longer, and then making sure that he can recreate that on the next rep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so you'll notice that hip drive tends to come in more as you get more tired because it tends to just be a little bit more of an efficient way to move the bar. I think he's jamming the bar too low on his back, which is why he was kind of doing with his wrist. He was talking about his wrist discomfort. I think that's certainly playing into it. I would move the bar up. And then just keep thinking about like what Chase was saying with that cue before. Pretend there's an egg behind your knee and you're trying to crack the egg. You know, just be really confident in sitting down, and then pretend someone's picking your belt up from behind you to get you to stand up. Because this is what I talk about people unfolding in the squat. It looks like, you know, their hips are staying in position and their chest is pulling up like this, and then the bar will almost go a little bit backwards, and it can be really uncomfortable. You know, if you guys are paying attention and you see the plates, they spin forward on the way down and then they spin backwards on the way up, and that's just really uncomfortable. I think that toe angle may need to increase as well. So like Chase was saying, was keep shoving the knees out. Maybe we need to pull the toes in as well, or toes out, excuse me. Chase, what do you think this machine is, back here? We're gonna try and get a good angle on this. What is this,
Chase? It's like could be like an ab developer or some shit.
I don't see a seat on it with where you're supposed to sit.
I don't, but I feel like
there are two pads up here.
Yeah.
They look like shoulder pads.
There's just like a squat machine to where, like, let's say you face where the pillows are.
Okay.
You put your hands on top, and then like it's almost like a Mars bar, you know, that rests on your shoulders.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like that.
I don't understand what he was picking up though. I almost think that this thing may be not oriented in the correct direction. Maybe it's supposed to be. Maybe he has it on its side or something. I'm not sure what this is, but Kirkland. We'll reach out to Kirkland and see what the hell that thing is. I have absolutely no idea. This is an interesting basement gym, though. All right, that's it for the hour. Chase, did we talk about creatine? Did we not talk about creatine this whole time?
We didn't.
Do you take creatine?
Nope.
How much do you take whenever you did take it, if you ever have?
5 milligrams a day.
Not milligrams.
I thought it was, right?
It's grams.
5 grams?
It's a pretty big scoop.
Dude, I always took like a small one. I think it's like a tablespoon, right?
Dosing. No, it's grams, dog. Yeah, it's grams.
Well, then I was underdosing. I was not getting my.
If you buy it with a scoop in it, the scoop that it comes with. Oh, you just eyeballed it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, frankly, it's inert, and if you eat a tremendous amount of it, nothing's going to happen to you. You just piss it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so creatine prices have skyrocketed recently. Before you used to be able to get like a 3-4 pound bag from like My Protein for like $15. Now it is significantly more expensive. I'm not sure what portion of the supply chain is kind of goofed up to make it that much more expensive, but it has dramatically outpaced everything else. Even whey protein, you can still get 5 pounds of whey protein for like $50 basically. Yeah. Creatine, very expensive. So for those of you who are unaware, creatine helps facilitate the creatine phosphate portion of your cell's ability to produce energy. There are 3 ways to produce energy within the cell. The one that we know most about is the adenosine triphosphate. This one is creatine phosphate. So the waste product of the most abundant way to create energy in a cell, that adenosine triphosphate or tritodi, excuse me, the byproduct of that goes, and then you have your creatine phosphate cycle. Saturating your cells with more of creatine monohydrate facilitates that process and makes it even better. Yeah. Teo's in chat. Yeah, he said 5 milligrams. You couldn't even see.
Well, man, I guess that's why.
It's a tiny. That's why you're so weak, Chase, is because you didn't take enough creatine.
Yeah, I've been lacking on the creatine.
That's what it is. But yeah, so creatine, it seems to be really helpful. There are people who respond noticeably to it. I haven't met terribly many of them. It is one of the only things that we know that is like a surefire bet. You take it, you will likely have some performance increase, but it is in no way necessary to take. One thing that I have noticed with myself and then with my clients is that the way that it seems to be packaged now, or at least for a lot of my guys, I'm going to include myself, I get a lot of GI distress whenever I take creatine, especially if I just do 5 grams in a liquid. I'll do like 2.5, and that seems to be fine. But as so long as it's not causing you GI distress, it's likely fine. If you're not taking it, it's relatively inert. Anything else you want to talk about, Chase, for the day?
No, just kind of talk a little bit more about creatine. So, creatine's found in a lot of meat, right? It's in the cells of red meat. I think even chicken and stuff like that, but predominantly more of like the red meat. So, if you eat a bunch of meat as it is, you probably are getting enough creatine. With like the added energy and kind of what you're going to see, let's say a set of 5, right? And you notice maybe the last rep on that set of 5 is a little less grindy. That's mainly the start difference. There's not going to be like a 20-pound increase to all your lifts or anything drastic like that. It's so minute of a change to where it's almost inconceivable.
If you do higher rep work, you will notice it. We're like, oh, okay. Like if, I'm 3 weeks into taking creatine and, something that I could probably do for like 12, I can probably do for like 14 now, but it's hard to do that because there's a loading phase to creatine. Like Teo is mentioned here in this comment. I'll put it on screen now. But also time is progressed and you should be getting stronger in that period of time. So it's really hard to say what's what. You have to have like a whole training block and then say on this training block, I was taking creatine, this training block I wasn't. What was my average rate of gain during that training block? And then you can kind of say how much it's helping you. It's really hard to nail down. I think people just kind of assume that it's like, oh, well, I'm getting stronger and I'm taking it, so it must be helpful. That's not inherently true, because you are also, it's still time, it's still training. Teo says, would you rotate creatine use or loading? I read you can get false positive kidney illnesses or kidney illness results if you take it for a year. I would say no. I don't think a year has any sort of special value in time. It's not like, okay, at 11 months and 15 days, no false positive. 12 months and 1 day, false positive. I don't think that relationship really exists. There isn't a lot of research out there on, or there isn't a lot of data, that says it needs to be unloaded at any point. It's just kind of like something that you can eat. I wouldn't really say there's any justification for coming off of it. You don't need to cycle it like you would a special sports supplement. It's not DECA or something.
It's already in your diet. So like, how can you stop loading creatine?
Yeah. So like, if you tell your doctor and you're like, hey, I exercise a lot, I'm taking creatine monohydrate, I eat a significant amount of protein, and they'll be like, okay, whenever we're doing our normal blood labs, we'll keep those in mind. If you're not symptomatic in any way, they're going to understand that and you're going to be totally fine. I did have one of my guys who had like a really high creatinine level, and it was just like, okay, well, you have a good amount of muscle mass on your body and you train a lot. And you eat a lot of protein. This isn't super abnormal, like someone who has a significant amount of muscle mass and is training a good amount, it's going to present a little bit differently. But you just have that conversation with your physician. There's a few companies have really good articles out about that. I wouldn't be too worried about it. Wouldn't be worried about it at all. It is very rare for over-the-counter supplements to hurt you if you are taking them within their guidelines. Unless you are pregnant, and I don't think anyone who watches our show will ever get pregnant.
Or if you're taking like Jack 3D, man, and you're running fucking 12 miles in the morning after a fucking binge night of drinking.
Yeah, if you were back in the wild days of pre-workout where they would like spike their pre-workout for the first 3 months, that's pretty sick, But unfortunately, our terrible Food and Drug Administration has prevented that from happening.
Fucking lame.
I know, right? I want free steroids, man. It's like all the DARE stuff we saw in high school that said like, hey, people are going to try to offer you free drugs. Never happened once.
Yeah.
No one has also ever offered me steroids for free. I would love some, The second someone offers me, I'm going to take. Chase, what's been going on your Instagram lately? Anything cool?
No, I haven't really been posting. Just it's been lazy with it, but I need to. My lifts have been kind of going all right.
That's about it. It's going to be very exciting, though, folks. I'll tell you what. The second you start following, Chase is going to really dial it up to 11.
Yep.
Posts every day.
If I get, 10,000 followers, I'm just going to post every single day.
How many followers do you have on your Instagram now, Chase?
I don't know,
all right, we're checking it out here.
Or something.
Chase Lindley, Instagram. All right, hold on. 6,800 followers. Everybody, that's so many. Yeah, that's a good amount. Chase's Instagram, check it out. Chase's backup account is at Chase_Lindley. I do online coaching. Chase does as well. You can find services for that at EcoStrength. And if you want to get videos on the show, I know that Dale said he posted one to his channel. I don't know exactly what that means. But Dale, if you want to get a video on the show, email it to that email so that I can host it on my end rather than going through a separate website. But yeah, you can send in videos there, and then we'll get to them in the next week or two. Anything else, Chase?
No, just hope everyone's training goes well and continue to get strong.
All right. Have a good weekend, boys.